Riley, he keeps the access a little bit, lower than Stoops has in terms of availability. But there was some open media availability earlier this week, and there's a lot of there was a lot of discussion. So we've got a lot of good notes, on almost nearly every position, just in terms of who's looking good, how things are looking. So maybe I'll start with two of the biggest position groups that are maybe more concerning, I think, than others: the offensive line and the wide receiver position. And fortunately, it looks like things are maybe looking a little bit better than maybe earlier anticipated. So first, on the offensive line, I think is maybe the biggest concern overall on the team. And offensive line coach Bill Bedenbaugh was talking earlier this week, and he had he was very glowingly talking about the entire offensive line. So first, more importantly, I guess, than the entire offensive line was the center position, which we've talked about here, over the spring and summer is, maybe the biggest position that Oklahoma has to replace coming in. And it looks like Andrew Rame has all but solidified that position. Bedenbaugh was very, was very complimentary of him, the way he's worked through the summer, what he's been doing here. And, he even asked what are some of the things he likes about Andrew Rame, and Bedenbaugh said, really everything. So I think, and he even made a joke after that. I said, wait, hold on a second. Don't print that. But he talked about, I think, maybe not quite as far along as Creed Humphrey was at this point in his career in terms of his strength, but he's come a long ways from the spring to the summer, or spring to the fall, I should say, and exactly what he's done. So I think that's a position that I think when we talked last week, Mark, I think they would like to have had that solidified within the first couple of weeks of camp. It looks like it's solidified maybe a little bit closer. I mean, a little bit sooner than they would have at least hoped at that point. So I think that's really good news for the entire offensive line. A couple of interesting things from a position perspective. Talked a lot about Anton Harrison and Wanye Morris. Both of those kids are working at left tackle. I think, some of the thought would be that one of those folks, maybe Wanye Morris would take that left tackle spot, or if Anton Harrison had that left tackle spot, then it would just have him, Wanye Morris, move over to the right side. As of right now, they're both working at left tackle. Looks like from everything I'm hearing and what I've been told is Anton Harrison has the lead right now in terms of what that looks like. So I think as the camp goes on, it'll be interesting to see if Wanye Morris slides over to the right side, because some people don't know, but he did play a lot at Tennessee on the right side. So it's a position that he's played in the past. So, and one kind of wonders with his eligibility issues that seem to be kind of put the rest now, but earlier in camp that was part of it. So maybe Bedenbaugh's thought was, I want to get someone else ready on the right side from a tackle position to be to be ready to play, should he not be there for the Tulane game. So I think that'll be interesting to see. In another position, Tyrese Robinson, who's worked on the right side at guard for Oklahoma over the last couple of years, is getting a lot more time at right tackle. He's playing with the ones at right tackle. So it looks to me like that could be a guy that moves and plays at the right tackle position. He's done a lot of good work in the summer, so I think being most comfortable with him. So now I think the biggest question mark is probably at right guard, and who gets that position. You think you've got Marquise Hayes on the left side, along with probably Anton Harrison there, and then you got Rame at the center. So I think the biggest question mark is in totality is probably on the right side, and see how that works. But I think overall, like I said, Bedenbaugh's been really complimentary of that group. And then when you move to the wide receiver position, really is a group that Lincoln Riley pushed in the early in the spring. So a team that's an area of the team that's got to be a lot better. And from everything we've heard so far, it has been. They played really well, and they played really well in the spring, and then that's carried over into the summer. A lot of work in the weight room. You've got a couple of guys that have been, injured. Jaden Hazelwood and Theo Weiss are a couple of guys, and they look really good. In the probably 20, 30 minutes that we were able to see, the practice, and you see Jaden Hazelwood running free without, without any knee braces or anything like that. And then Theo Weiss is a guy, when he had a little bit of an ankle leg thing in the spring, and you could see that he had that. With that opportunity, he worked on his upper body a lot stronger. But I think more. We've talked about Mike Woods, who's a guy that came in from Arkansas. He's been really, really impressive early on. So I think Oklahoma has, Mark, probably about 6 guys in that rotation right now that they feel comfortable with Jaden Hazelwood, Theo Weiss, Marvin Mims, Drake Stoops, Mike Woods, and I think I missed one here. I want to make sure I get and Mario Williams. Obviously, he's a true freshman that'll come in and he'll play a lot. So I think they feel like they got a good 6-man rotation. Cody Williams is a guy that could get into that rotation right now. He's probably a little bit on the outside looking in, but it's just always fun that we always forget about him. I mean, we kind of come back to him as Drake Stoops, as a guy that always makes plays. Oklahoma, the official Twitter account releases their videos, and there was one video that was dedicated to him specifically on all the plays that he's going to be able to make. So certainly a guy that's probably not going to be a starter, but he's going to be regularly in the rotation. So those two areas that were a little bit of concern for Oklahoma fans coming in on the offensive side of the ball look to be playing well early on. Looking at the running back position, Eric Gray is still the guy, the number one name that kind of gets talked about. So I would expect him to start, but I think Kennedy Brooks is going to get this, a pretty good amount of carries and playing time. Been told that he looks much better here in the fall than he did in the spring. Kind of getting back his explosiveness is back to where he feels like it was before, maybe even a little bit more. So, and I think the concern still is, what does Oklahoma have behind him? We've got Marcus Major, who has played a decent amount last year. However, he's still got the lingering academic thing going over his head, something that I've not really heard much about in the last couple of weeks. Like I said, he is practicing. Kavontre Bradford is a guy I really haven't heard much about, and just in terms of how well he's playing, probably we'll hear a little bit more next week in terms of just some offensive players and some offensive coaches getting some media time. But as of right now, it looks obviously to be Eric Gray and Kennedy Brooks as the 2 top guys, but they need that third and or fourth guy to kind of solidify themselves and be there.